You're completely wrong. About time, you probably think you understand it because you glance at your watch or feel yourself aging. But that is not time. That is just sensation. A biological trick your brain plays on you. Most people walk around with this romantic notion that time is like a river. You imagine it flowing, carrying you along from past through present into future. You think it moves. You think it pushes you forward. But here is the fundamental problem with that beautiful metaphor. If time is a river, how fast does the river flow? 1 second per second. That is meaningless. That is like saying a table is 1 table long. It tells you absolutely nothing about the nature of reality. The truth is much stranger, much more mechanical, and honestly far less poetic than any flowing stream could ever be. Time does not flow. Time does not push you anywhere. And if you think you have a solid grip on how time works, just because you can count seconds in your head, you are in for a very rude awakening. Let me show you where the confusion begins. It starts right inside your skull. You think your internal clock is a reliable instrument. It is not. It is a chaotic mess of translation schemes competing for dominance. Try this simple experiment. Count to 60 seconds in your head right now. Just sit there and count. 1, 2, 3, 4. You think you are tracking time accurately, but what you are really doing is running a very specific, very personal program that exists only in your mind. Some of you, when you count, you hear a voice. You are literally speaking to yourself inside your head, sub-vocalizing the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If someone interrupts and asks you to speak out loud, you lose count immediately. The machine jams. The program crashes. But others, and this is where it gets truly interesting, do not hear any voice at all. They see images instead. They might visualize a measuring tape with numbers clicking past, like a ticker display. Click, 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 47, 48, 49. If you use that visual tape system, you can actually read a newspaper while counting time. You can sort through your laundry, fold your socks, organize your drawer, and still keep that mental measuring tape clicking along perfectly in the background. But the person who counts with a voice cannot read a single word without losing track completely. They cannot process written language and count simultaneously because both tasks compete for the same mental resource. The auditory channel gets overloaded. This tells us something absolutely fundamental about time perception. What you experience as the passage of time is just a mental construct, a pattern matching game your brain invented. It varies wildly from person to person. It is not a universal constant. It is a biological hallucination. So when we talk about physics, when we talk about the actual universe, we have to throw your brain out the window entirely. We have to stop talking about how time feels and start talking about what time actually is. In physics, we must be operational. That means we do not ask philosophical questions like, what is the essence of time? That is a question for people who enjoy arguing over coffee for hours without reaching any conclusion. We ask practical questions. How do we measure it? How do we quantify it? How do we use it to make predictions? And the answer is almost disappointingly simple. Time is just a way of ordering events. That is it. It is a labeling system, nothing more, nothing less. Imagine you have a deck of cards spread out on a table. You arrange them in a row. You can say, the jack comes before the queen comes before the king. The cards are not moving. The table is not flowing like a river. The order is simply a structural property of how you arranged the cards in space. Time is the table. Events are the cards. When we say time passes, we are just reading the cards from left to right. We are moving our attention along a sequence that already exists. This brings us to the biggest mistake everyone makes about time. You think time is a container. You imagine the universe as a big empty box, and time as a clock mounted on the wall of that box, ticking away even if the box contains absolutely nothing. You think that if we removed all the stars, all the planets, all the atoms, and all the light, time would just keep ticking, tick, 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 endlessly into eternity. Wrong. Completely wrong. This is the Newtonian view of time, and it died with Einstein. Time is not a background stage where events perform. Time is not independent of the universe. Time is a measure of change. If absolutely nothing in the universe changes at all, if no atoms vibrate, no light moves, no energy shifts position, then time stops. It ceases to have any meaning whatsoever. You cannot define a second without some physical process to mark it. A swinging pendulum, a vibrating quartz crystal, a cesium atom oscillating between energy states. Time is not separate from the stuff in the universe. Time is a property of that stuff. This is where your intuition fights back hard. You want to protest. You want to say, surely time acts on things. Surely time makes me get older. Surely time causes milk to spoil in the refrigerator. No, it does not. This is a linguistic trap we fall into constantly. Time is not an agent. Time does not have hands that reach into your fridge and sour your milk. Bacteria do that. Chemical reactions do that. Entropy does that. Time is just the bookkeeping system we use to track the rate at which those reactions happen. Saying time did something is exactly like saying inches built your house. Inches did not build anything. Carpenters built your house. Inches just tell you where the walls are positioned. Time is the ruler, not the worker. Time is the measuring stick, not the force doing the pushing. Let me push this ruler analogy even further because this is where reality gets genuinely weird. If time is just a ruler we use to measure the distance between events, what happens if that ruler itself is flexible? What if the ruler can stretch and compress depending on circumstances? This is not science fiction. This is not speculation. This is measurable, testable, confirmed fact that we have verified thousands of times. We used to think that a second was a second anywhere in the universe. Absolute, universal. If you had a clock on Earth and an identical clock on Mars, they would tick and tock in perfect unison forever. It feels obvious. It feels right. It feels like common sense. And it is completely, utterly, demonstrably false. The rate at which clocks tick depends entirely on where they are located and how fast they are moving. And this is not a mechanical failure of the clock. This is not your watch battery dying. This is a fundamental feature of how reality actually works. Imagine you are driving a car across a giant flat sheet of paper. You can drive north, you can drive east. If you drive purely north, you are making maximum progress in the northward direction. Every bit of your speed goes into moving north. But now turn your steering wheel and start driving northeast. Now you are sharing your speed between two directions. You're moving a bit north and a bit east simultaneously. You are not going north as fast as you were before because you diverted some of that motion eastward. Your total speed stays the same, but how that speed gets distributed between directions has changed. Now replace north with time and replace east with space. This is the essence of relativity. You are always moving through the universe at a constant speed. But that motion gets shared between movement through space and movement through time. If you sit perfectly still in your chair right now, you are dedicating all of your motion to moving through time. You are traveling into the future at maximum speed, 1 second per second from your perspective. But the moment you stand up and walk, or get in a car and drive, or climb into a rocket and fly, you are diverting some of that motion into space. You are moving through space, which means you mathematically must move slower through time. Your clock slows down. Your aging slows down. Your heartbeat slows down. You are not breaking any machine. You are not causing any malfunction. You are simply changing direction on the map of space-time. If you could somehow move at the speed of light, which is the absolute maximum speed limit of the universe, you would be using 100% of your motion for moving through space. You would have exactly zero motion left over for time. For a photon of light racing through the void, time does not pass at all. From the photon's perspective, it is born and absorbed in the same instant. The entire universe is frozen. The journey that takes millions of years from our perspective takes zero time from the photon's perspective. Now you might be thinking, well, I do not feel my watch slowing down when I run to catch the bus. Of course not. You are far too slow. You are a biological snail crawling through space-time. The effects at human speeds are incredibly tiny, almost negligible, but they are real. They are measurable. We have to program satellites with this mathematics. GPS satellites orbit Earth at high speeds. So their internal clocks experience time differently than your clock on the ground. We literally have to adjust their timekeeping constantly to account for relativistic effects. Without these adjustments, your GPS would be off by kilometers within hours. The system would fail completely. This is not theoretical physics happening in some abstract mathematical realm. This is engineering. This is technology used every single day. There is another aspect of time that constantly tricks us, and it connects back to that sock sorting experiment, the idea of pattern recognition. We perceive time as having a direction, an arrow pointing from past to future. The past is fixed and unchangeable. The future is open and uncertain. You can remember eating breakfast this morning, but you cannot remember eating dinner tonight. Why? If the equations of physics work forwards and backwards, and most of them genuinely do, why can we not remember the future? Why does time seem to have this arrow? If you film a planet orbiting a star and play the footage backward, it looks completely fine. It still obeys all the laws of gravity perfectly. The mathematics works in both directions without any problem. But if you film an egg falling off a counter and shattering on the floor, then play that footage backward, everyone immediately knows something is wrong. The yolk does not leap off the floor, gather itself into a perfect sphere, seal itself inside a shell, and jump back onto the counter. That is not how reality works. Here is the secret behind that broken egg. This is not actually about time itself. This is about probability. This is about disorder. This is about the mathematics of messiness. It is vastly, enormously, incomprehensibly easier to break an egg than to assemble one. There are billions upon billions of ways for an egg to be broken. Shell fragments scattered here, yolk splattered there, bits of membrane stuck to the floor. Thousands of different configurations all count as broken egg. But there is only one hyper-specific arrangement where the egg is whole and intact and functional. One configuration out of trillions of possibilities. So as things move and interact and bump into each other, they naturally stumble from organized states with few options into disorganized states with many options. This is not a law that time enforces. This is simply statistics playing out. We call this process entropy. And entropy is the only reason you feel an arrow of time at all. You are watching the universe shuffle its deck of cards. You started with a perfectly ordered deck, ace through king in every suit arranged beautifully, and every second that ticks by on your clock is just the universe shuffling that deck a bit more.
Introducing the randomness.
Creating more disorder. You cannot unshuffle a deck just by wishing really hard. You cannot spontaneously decrease entropy without doing significant work. This means your sensation of time flowing, your feeling that past is different from future, is actually just your brain registering the increase of disorder in the universe around you. You are a disorder detector, a messiness meter. When you distinguish past from future, you are really just distinguishing less messy from more messy, less shuffled from more shuffled. If the universe was somehow in a state of maximum entropy, maximum messiness, where everything was evenly spread out and nothing interesting was happening anywhere, your brain would not be able to tell past from future at all. There would be no eggs to break. There would be no memories to form. There would be no chemical reactions running in your neurons to create thoughts. In a thermal equilibrium universe where entropy has reached its maximum, the arrow of time vanishes completely. Time becomes directionless, meaningless. So let us connect this back to those people counting seconds in their heads, the ones seeing the measuring tape versus the ones hearing the voice in their mind. They are both struggling to impose rigid linear structure onto a universe that is actually far more flexible than either system can capture. We build these mental models, these internal counting machines, because we desperately need them to survive. We need to know when the predator is coming, when the harvest is ready, when the baby needs feeding. We evolved to track duration efficiently, but we absolutely did not evolve to understand the dimension of time accurately. Our brains are optimized for survival efficiency, not physical accuracy. We focus obsessively on the present moment because that is where we live. That is where decisions get made. That is where survival happens. But in physics, now is an incredibly slippery concept that barely means anything at all. If you and I are standing next to each other right now, our definition of now is effectively identical. We agree on what is happening at this moment. But if you board a spaceship and fly away from me at enormous speed, your definition of now slices through the universe at a completely different angle than mine. What you consider to be happening right now in some distant galaxy might be in my future. What I consider to be happening right now might be in your past. There is no universal now that blankets the entire cosmos like a shared present moment. The universe is not a sequence of moments happening one after another everywhere simultaneously. The universe is a four-dimensional block of events, a loaf of bread made of space-time. And how you slice that loaf into individual moments of now depends entirely on how fast you are moving and in what direction. This is profoundly hard to accept. It feels completely wrong. It feels like I am telling you up is down and left is right. But that resistance you feel is just your biology fighting against physics. You are trying to translate the high-level mathematical language of the universe into the low-level survival language of your neurology. You are trying to count socks when you should be measuring light beams. You are trying to hear voices when you should be seeing geometry. When you try to force the universe to fit your intuition, you get confusion, you get paradoxes, you get contradictions that seem impossible to resolve. But when you finally let go of what you think time is, when you stop trying to count it like a pile of objects and start measuring it like a dimension of space, suddenly everything works. Suddenly, the equations make sense. Suddenly, the universe reveals its structure. Feynman understood this better than almost anyone. He understood that time is not what it seems, that our intuitions mislead us constantly, that reality operates on principles far stranger than common sense could ever predict. The flow of time is an illusion, not a lie, but a perspective. The view from inside a biological machine that evolved to survive, not to understand. Time does not push you. Time does not aid you. Time does not make anything happen. Time is the measuring stick we use to organize the changes that matter and energy create as they interact. And that measuring stick bends and flexes and stretches depending on gravity and velocity. You have been floating your entire life hovering on electromagnetic fields, moved by entropy, measured by flexible rulers made of space-time itself. And the greatest mystery of all is that we tiny biological machines made of stardust and electrical impulses managed to figure this out at all.